Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. This is Sean McNulty of the Wake Up newsletter here at the Ankler here on the Jersey Shore on Thursday, August 15th. I'm joined in Los Angeles by Elaine Lowe. Sadly, Richard Rushfield had to go see about a baguette or something in Europe. Elaine, am I getting that right?
I expect to see his food blog launch shortly, yes.
Yeah, I'm expecting a full chorizo reports next time he's on the pod or something.
An undisclosed country, I think, would be.
Yeah, I didn't ask any questions beyond that. Yeah, exactly. His food tour. That is, of course, David Litsky, who's joining us back for the festivities this week. Nice to see you, David.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you not on an earnings call, I guess, would be this month for once.
Yes, we have a brief respite.
A brief respite. Hey, we got a few months for the next ones. Come on now. We're that trauma is out of our August. We're in a different mode. Anyway, but a bit of a quiet week, I think, here, Lane. People are on vacation. A lot of your reporting calls from people's vacation homes this week, or I don't know, slowing down a little bit here.
Getting a lot of straight to voicemail this week.
Straight to voicemails. Okay.
Oh, reporter, no thank you. Not when I'm out at the beach.
Yeah, a lot of Hamptons and Malibu area codes coming up on your caller IDs. Exactly. Yeah, so, mid-August malaise, I guess we'll call it. It's funny, having done this for, quite a few years now, a few different cycles. August, traditionally, David, in the business, has been, the quiet month. By mid-month, it gets pretty quiet. But the past 2 years, last year, the strikes were going on, so there was no quiet going on there. And the year before that was kind of the fears of recession and advertising collapse was starting, kind of in that fall of 2022. So this year feels like it's kind of, so far, the ones we used to recognize, David, I think.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be upset if things...
I'm not comparing. To be clear,
we don't need that kind of drama right now, I would say.
Totally fine if it stays this way.
It feels exceptionally quiet this summer, yes, because last summer, perhaps my perception is skewed because I was covering the picket lines so often. But also it just feels like it's quiet in a way where people aren't satisfied or secure with where they are, but everybody is still out on vacation.
To be clear, there was movement on Paramount. Elaine probably lead with this, of course, the $500 million of, quote, cost savings, where the final S is definitely not saved for you, was hitting at Paramount. The initial round here of 2,000-ish layoffs coming in the U.S. alone. About 15% of the U.S. workforce at Paramount started rolling out this week. About 1,800 of those will be happening in the next 6 weeks or so by the end of September, they said. And then the rest of the 10% will be through the end of the year. Always fun for that environment to be happening. Gotta love if you that environment of, let's just see if we cut too much in this department, or can we still get a few more, in this area, kind of, thinking kind of coming through there. But where are things starting here at Paramount this week in the big job cuts?
Yeah, I got to tell you, first off, last Monday when we published that series Business that talked about the carnage in cable jobs and it being like watching your old high school burn down, I really did not expect that to be immediately followed that week by two massive write-downs from both Paramount and Warner's, essentially affirming that. Yes,
You're
that was
very prescient, Elaine.
Sure, yeah. Well, but also horrible, and it's like,
and not in a good way. Not in a good way.
No, nobody wants to be prescient in that way. Gosh, and in some ways too, it feels almost like an affirmation that's coming very late in the game, like a financial affirmation of something that everybody has collectively known for quite a while, that these businesses are on the decline, that they are not working, that they are not valued as much as they used to be.
Yeah, so we lost Paramount TV Studios. David is no longer. The Paramount had 3 studios, CBS Studios and Showtime and MTV Entertainment Studios, I think.
Right, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that gets me, and Disney did this too, which is summarily infuriating, which is you announce you're going to do this layoff, and then several months later, you basically announce it again, and then you start doing it, and you're going to do it in pieces. as opposed to all at once. This just seems like, I'm not trained in the dark arts of human resources. I have no experience as a chief people officer or whatever, but this just seems like the absolute worst possible way to do this, and that it really should just be, your proverbial rip off the Band-Aid, and that, like just quietly prepare, figure it out, do it in one fell swoop, because otherwise you just create this, looming specter over the entire company and just leach out any bit of morale or whatever. And there was an interesting piece last week, 2 weeks ago, in Bloomberg about the sort of hidden costs of doing these layoffs, and that, there are, both financial in that, obviously the severance and the tax implications and lawyers for, any lawsuits saying that the firing was, discriminatory, and and then you lose just other people in the process because of the way these things are being done. None of that is accounted for, and it just seems like this is, just truly terrible. So, Elaine, obviously you're talking, to folks often. Like, what is your sense as you've been sort of covering this and following this of how, what this is doing to the employees that even still have their jobs?
Well, like you said, it's demoralizing on a whole other level, right? Paramount TV Studios shuttering after 11 years, to some people may not have been the most surprising thing, knowing that there are cuts coming, knowing that there are an X number of, what's the goal right now with the synergy goal? The number has changed.
At the end?
So
$2 billion?
Yeah. Is it 2.5 or two?
$2 billion total once Skydance comes in the door. Yeah.
Right. So it's like you're going to be looking for cuts somewhere, and it's like, is it going to be real estate? Is it going to be selling off assets? How many more personnel cuts can you make to make that happen? But yeah, the effect it has is it winds up draining morale, and you have people looking for the exits and wondering what else they can leap to. Again, and this is something that we talked about in last week's series business, of if you're somebody who's worked in linear scheduling capacity for 10 years, like what do you hop to? Like how do you get to a streamer from that point? How do you get to a boutique production company from that point, or any of the other solutions that were offered by industry vets that I talked to for that story? It's a really tough place to be in.
Yeah, I just think at this point I'll also mention A&E Networks, which is also another heavily tied to the cable bundle business out there. David had a round of layoffs this week. No number on it, but sounded pretty considerable at this point. And Disney has a stake in that business.
Yeah, that was a drag on Disney's earnings, right?
Yeah,
not the layoffs, but the A&E's losses.
No, the number on the Q2 report, the business line for them, the revenues were down 28% year over year due to A&E, a drop in revenue. So that, again, not breaking news here. The cable business is in decline, et cetera, et cetera. But it really feels like, David, 2024 is really the big demarcation point for, I think, all right, it's not maybe an unwinding, but certainly a large downsizing of the cable TV business.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the question, which we've been wrestling with in the wake up, almost every day,
daily,
is what comes next. Right. And, you covered the little paid attention to, earnings from Sony.
The sleeper of a Sony.
And,
exactly.
Was Sony somehow right all along, and this arms dealer model is where more and more studios are going to go?
Yeah, that was interesting. Look, and I should mention Richard also did a series of columns this week looking back at various golden eras in Hollywood, from the 30s to the 70s to the 90s. A time without streaming, Elaine. There was a time when there was no streaming in this business. Did you know that?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure you're okay. You're like, Richard was making things up, wasn't he? Like, no, that was actually true. But a time, David, when, box office and TV ratings and maybe advertising were the popular topics of discussion, but certainly the financials of the business were rarely discussed, if ever, much less an earnings report, heaven forbid. ARPU wasn't a twinkle in our eye at this point, 25 or maybe 30, 35 years ago, whatever it is. But yeah, with that Sony call, amid all the big WBD, Paramount, Disney headlines last week, Sony, another major studio, by one of the majors, revealed their numbers and nobody cared. Nobody said, I didn't even cover it for about 4 days. It was like, all right, and I think you're, to your point, they're maybe trying to move, not trying to, but it maybe just is moving back to that simplicity of it. I'm just like, but there's something to that, David.
Oh, yeah. It was interesting to just, I didn't listen to the call, but I
we did not cover that Tokyo 3 a.m. call to be
3 a.m. They're just refreshingly straightforward in saying, we're going to make tentpole movies. We have a system in place that we think give them a good chance to be hits. And we think as other studios follow that it actually will benefit everyone. And I think we've seen that this summer since Bad Boys 4 and, in the last 2.5 months.
Well, what is that system to make a stream of hits?
Well, yes, of course.
Some quarters are better than other quarters, Elaine. That's, sometimes you got Spider-Man Across the Universe, and sometimes it's Bad Boys 4.
Well, that's not a system. That's just dollar cost averaging hits.
Well, yeah. That's Hollywood. This is literally what.
I don't know, David. It just sounded like there was you said system. System implies some sort of method to the madness.
That is the system. Make hits.
Right. We think this is going to be good. They had this conversation right before It Ends With Us came out, and they were hopeful, and they were correct. So, these are good things. Sony is not infallible by any means, obviously. But, I think as we've seen, and again, I'm not saying this is easy, but if you're able to pull off one solid hit a quarter, you're in great shape.
Yeah. Those are the numbers. Just the Sony alone was, $2.2 billion in revenue, which was down 7%, a little bit. A lot of that was due to the strikes, quite frankly, because TV series weren't, as robust of delivery yet, still kind of ramping up there. Movies were down 6% year over year. As I said, Bad Boys 4 wasn't as quite as big as the Spider-Man Across the Universe, but the whole division still turned about $75 million in profit. You're making money. You're employing people. You have back to your question, it's library. You're licensing a library that gets you through those periods. So you get a solid check from Netflix for a pay one window. If you have a few more hits, as David said, the revenue's going to pump up a little bit. If you have a few more duds, it's going to go down a little bit, but it's not going to collapse out of the, like the other business lines we're seeing. And that's kind of Hollywood from an arms dealer point of view.
Yeah. The one other thing that stood out to me with Sony was that they did briefly talk about the Alamo Drafthouse acquisition. And
right, they're in a movie theater chain now, yeah.
It does call back a little bit to that 30s, pre-Paramount Decree golden age. And, they're not going to be thousands of these, obviously. Right now, they're less than 50, right? But they clearly see an opportunity to, create something special in those theaters for their movies. I think particularly the anime stuff through Crunchyroll, where they'll take all the money. So why not? Why not take all the money?
And you get a lot of audience data, and you get a lot of other things that can be helpful for your marketing and company efforts. But I think it's just this divergence, Elaine, of just different ways. It's not one way to do Hollywood, clearly, but the middle way ain't go. One's based in cable bundle, or they got to figure out something new here. So you got two options: you're either going to go big or you're going to go smaller. And it's like, well, they were trying to go big with the streaming services, and it's like you're either going to get scale or you're not. And we're kind of seeing what's shaking out there, and scale on a global players, which you can afford the sports rights, you can afford whatever it's going to. You have to have that, or there's this Sony model that's out there where if you're not, in these businesses, you can still make a living and do, Hollywood is, the skill set is not like anybody can do it. As I've said before, there's only a handful of businesses that can distribute something worldwide and knows how to sell it to everybody. You're in sales, your library sales, you're selling the TV shows to other networks. And that's what Sony does. Everybody does this kind of thing. They did it for years.
One of the things I think that has been true forever is that basically people can only really sort of handle 3 to 4 things. So, eons ago, it was ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and then, the cable era, okay, whatever. Obviously, even when you had hundreds of channels, for any individual, it was like, okay, I'm HBO, CNN, ESPN.
I watched 10.
Whatever.
Yeah, exactly,
and then
right.
Here came digital, and it's like, all right.
I guess that bears out with streamers, because I think the average we last saw was the average consumer has, 4 to 5 streamers that they pay to subscribe to.
So it was like, okay, we're going to have 9, whatever, people vying for 3-4 positions. And we're more or less seeing what those are. Netflix has one, YouTube has one, and now Disney has one. So we're really talking about everybody else is fighting for one spot to be the 4th network, as it were. So yeah, so it's like you said, we're at this demarcation point. It's a decision time. And I think that, big tech, one of the things that struck me from having covered, those companies in my previous job, it was that, they had gotten so big and had come to so dominate the innovation economy, or whatever you want to call it, that, the pressure for them to continue to grow, they just had to look around and say, well, what are the industries that are big enough where it makes sense for us to go in and sort of do what we do. And, and that's why all these companies got into healthcare, around the same time. Obviously a massive, business. They all got into transportation, self-driving cars, and, massive
Drones
business.
and
they got into entertainment because it's a huge business. And so, obviously there are other aspects to it. And clearly, Tim Cook at Apple and Jeff Bezos enjoy the parties and winning awards and all that stuff. Great. But I think ultimately it was like, hey, here's this big pool of money, a lot of it advertising money, and we want that. We want that for us. Right. So you see that with Amazon. Amazon had no advertising business for its first almost 20 years. And now its advertising business is doing almost $13 million a quarter. So now that's, on the e-commerce, but they've just started.
No, but it's ad money. It's ad money. Yeah.
Clearly they want the video business too, and they're coming for it. And I think that they're willing to break everything in the short term in the goal of winning in the long term. I think that's how they're all, sort of operating. And that's the part that I think has been the hardest for everyone else to adapt. And that's why, that arms dealer strategy starting to look pretty good.
Yeah, they're going to win at advertising. That's, it is. Look, the studios had a good run with the cable TV business and broadcast. But that ain't your future. Broadcast will still, live on and be a business, but you're not going to dominate, all of a sudden dominate Facebook or Amazon in this business. So the core of what you do, either gets the bigger or it gets to be, all right, but we still do this the best. And we're going to focus on that. And there's money in there. And there's profitability every quarter. And instead of Elaine, it's kind of based on hits. But that's been the nature of Hollywood. Everybody's been looking for the insulation from hits forever. And it's just there is none. And just make good movies. That's it, So I don't know. It's a recalibration of sorts. But there is going to be this pain, Elaine, of this period of just deconstructing the cable TV bedrock that is going to take 2 years. But on the other side of it, that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
I was just having a conversation with a longtime TV producer this morning about this, that essentially, especially when it comes to broadcast and basic cable, it's not as if people's appetites have largely changed. It's not like, I know, there's the run of prestige TV and all of that, but largely people like big network shows, people like procedurals, people like hard, funny comedy, and the audience, the demographic hasn't really changed either. So it's like the appetite for the kind of programming out there, the audience hasn't changed. It's just the method of consumption that's changed. And the economic model behind it has really just fallen apart for creators and people looking to make this a sustainable life for themselves. But everybody's waiting. You talk about recalibration. Everybody's waiting to see, what does that mean? How does that bear out?
We're looking at it.
All I hear is hope from long-time producers and execs who have been in the industry for decades, who you would think would have maybe some kind of tangible solution to propose. And what I hear is, well, I hope somebody figures this out in the next year or two to make this place still livable for all of us and the next generation.
Look, and we're coming off a boom, and it's there aren't people, again, the employment never was this, back in these different times, there was a big boom in employment in this town for 6 to 8 years, which is just not coming back. And there is going to be, this is what we're living through right now. And it's still going to be I'll say 2 more years of this, of writing massive $1 billion write-downs of these things we own that aren't worth anything anymore. Not great, Elaine. I'm not going to, there is no, I hope somebody figures it out. But that's the only way you're going to get there. And it sucks to have to live through it. And it sucks to, have to kind of we don't know. But, but that has to happen. And when it does, though, back to your point, though, and a line I always like to say is, Hollywood doesn't have a demand problem. It has a business model problem. If people didn't want to, if people weren't going to see Deadpool, we would have a bigger problem at our hands. It's more the underlying financials that are there, which is, again, we'll bring back to Sony, the fundamentals are there and they work. They're not astronomical Amazon quarterly numbers, but you're making a profit, you're employing people, and you're creating, things that matter to people.
Yeah. Right. Entertainment isn't going away. The demand for entertainment isn't going anywhere. You hear that all the time.
The simplistic model is not a bad way to go.
How do you make it financially viable now?
I looked this up. If I missed something, I'm terribly sorry. But I believe that, the last time Sony had any kind of layoff in terms of in the, entertainment studio was 35 people in 2020. So, it's a stable business that is not.
Yeah, compared to 800 layoffs at the beginning of the year and then shutting down a whole TV studio, right?
For Paramount, right? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And obviously there are other layoffs inside Sony in the gaming division and so on, right. Sure. But in the
for the studio
making movies and TV shows, it's very solid.
I'll go on a final note here. Just I do the Netflix films chart every week, and that's some data come in from a third party. Looking at the 2023 data. Big data dump. Netflix gave us all the data on their on their programming over the past year there, and 70% of films viewing in 2023 was licensed product. Only 29% was original film. So it's like, all right, the world's biggest streaming service. That studio and the studios were the top 6 providers of anybody, So that to me is, it gives me hope or whatever that this product still matters, and they're still a valuable. No one company can do this alone. No one company owns everything. This stuff, the hits matter in the library, and the ability to create new ones and market them worldwide, which is a big part of it, which is what these studios, the other real unsung power of these studios is the marketing group that makes these things into phenomenon. So that still lives on to fight another day. So anyway, before we take a quick break, check out a couple of new pieces here at The Ankler this week. Katie Rich has a chat with Gary Oldman on the return of one of Richard's favorites, Slow Horses. That's over in her Prestige Junkie podcast. Eric Barmack has a look at AI Al Michaels, how that whole endeavor went for NBC of the Olympics and the highlight reels this month. Some really fun examples to listen to over there, which I hadn't heard before. So that was a good read to check out. And Elaine, you looked at the latest on the labor front with the animation and video game businesses. What's going on?
Is everyone ready for hot labor summer 2.0?
Maybe a mild summer. Can I get a mild summer, not a hot summer? Is that an option?
A moderate labor summer? No.
No? All right. Well, it's worth a shot.
Well, the video game industry, the SAG-AFTRA performers, actually, who work under the interactive contract, they are on strike against video game publishers like EA and Activision and WB Games. And it's really over AI. AI is the last sticking point out of all of the issues that were on the table after a year and a half of negotiations with those publishers. Wages, benefits, all the usual kind of stuff had been resolved, but they wound up going on strike over this one particular issue, which I think shows you how much on the forefront of people's minds this is. And in a space like video games, which obviously so much of it is computer generated and relies on this technology, is at the forefront of this battle over AI. And the same thing bears out for the Animation Guild, which just started its negotiations with the AMPTP, which represents all the major Hollywood studios, over their upcoming 3-year contract. And again, AI is a big issue on the table. It's outsourcing, it's layoffs, and it's AI, because in animation, that's a space where there's a legitimate concern over how that technology is going to be used to push out animators and replace animators wholesale.
Yeah, it was a great look. It's really, but the forefront or the front lines of this, Elaine, which is a great read to check out, because you're right, it really is. It's like for all, not that acting and writing and things are involved in that.
The technology is so much more primitive in some ways compared to where it is for video games and animation.
It's here now. This isn't a theoretical conversation.
Not a theoretical thing. And I mean, even on the video game front and in the animation front, when I was at the rally last Saturday, animators were telling me, the stuff I've seen is a little more primitive. It's not being used widely yet, but do you want to wait 3 years to have this conversation again is the main thing.
For that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, just that one of the things that trying to do with Eric and the Real AI column is point to the ways in which AI could be deployed to make money and not just to shave costs, because ultimately, especially if you're going to talk about embracing AI and all of that, clearly at this point, investors are demanding to see a return and not just that we're able to slash labor and whatever. So, I think that there have to be new products and things that are exciting that allow people to do things that they couldn't otherwise do. And it has to be less about we can do this with 5 people instead of 50 people. And, obviously we're not there yet. And, I think these fights are, going to be incredibly contentious. I think it's good. But, there also just has to be a willingness to be a lot more imaginative in the way in which you can use this technology to do things that previously you couldn't do. And it's not if your mindset is just, wow, I can get rid of all these people, then, you're sort of in a loser mindset, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, a good read to check out there, both on Real AI and over in Elaine's series business column at theankler.com. Coming up next, speaking of old things that are new again, free TV, anyone? ESG looks at the explosive growth of Tubi and the fast TV sector this week. And the thing to note about some pretty impressive growth numbers, you had some really interesting insights there. We'll check those out. We'll break out our clickers when we come back in a moment. As Larry Sanders would say, no flipping, David, no flipping.
I do get the reference.
All right, there you go.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
You've maxed out your 401k, you're contributing to an IRA, and making some other investments. You're ahead of the game and doing well. But where do you go from here? The same old story can only get you so far. If you want a new take from a new type of financial professional, we invite you to get a fresh perspective beside an agent with the backing of New York Life. Insurance, investments, retirement, and more. Visit NYL.com to learn more. Investments are offered through registered representatives of NYLife Securities, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC, a New York Life company.
All right, Elaine, are you a fast user?
I am not, but I do like the hearkening back to the old days of TV, of being able just to click through. The times that I have used fast channels, I'm just like, oh, this is actually really soothing for the brain.
Something's triggering back. Memories are coming back of, oh, this used to be relaxing.
I don't have to like think about what I want. I don't have to like sit there and flip through a bunch of tiles and spend 20 minutes being like, do I want to watch this? And then not watch anything at all.
Right. How long is it? Yeah, exactly. Fast being free advertiser supported television. David, are you a fast guy?
Occasionally we'll dip in on a Tubi for sure. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the major players here we're talking about, of course, Tubi, owned by Fox, Pluto,
and a little Freevee, I guess. You'll find some interesting things on Freevee, which is the Amazon one.
The Amazon one, yeah. Pluto and Paramount, and of course Roku channel owned by Roku.
Yes.
And then whatever the hell Charter and Comcast are doing with Xumo, but I'm going to leave them out of this conversation for the time being. That's kind of an OG one. But yeah, Tubi's getting a lot of headlines this summer, David. ESG took a look under the hood there. Where do we start here?
Well, look, I do think there's something to that decision fatigue that Elaine is alluding to. It's interesting because Tubi has said, it's 90% of the viewing is on demand, and that the linear channels is just 10%. But even then, I think one of the things that's particularly compelling is that when you do open it up, like there's something playing. So you do have, you're immediately in the experience. And I don't think that sort of should be discounted. I mean, in the history, again, I'll put my tech history nerd hat on. In the history of tech, like the services that tend to win are the ones that are the fastest, that create that experience. I mean, there were a lot of photo sharing apps, and Instagram won because it was the fastest. Same with Spotify and music streaming. So the fact that you go in and it's like happening and like you just start, like, I was doing a research project for a story for next week, and you can't even like get the prices on, any streaming services.
Oh, when you first go to
have
them,
prices without basically like doing like a mortgage application, and and I just I'll just look around elsewhere on the internet. I thought this was the place to go, but apparently not. So I do think that speed is a very important factor. Obviously they have a lot of choice. I mean, Tubi has something like 200,000 different, either TV show episodes or movies. But, but I think that they do make it easy to navigate that. And I think that's important. And then, ultimately, not to ruin the story, which I do hope people read, but it's free. and that should not be underestimated.
I like how you framed that as like a spoiler alert, though, David. You do know Fast TV is free.
That's what the F stands for, folks.
That's exactly right. And it's important. Yeah.
I mean, I think the point more just that that is the most compelling offering. That just when you're out there and I don't want to have to decide and all of these bundles and the
and price
ad
increases
tier and the whatever. And do I want the
right.
standard plan or the premium plan or the premium means different things with different
Right.
services. It's incredibly confusing. And again, I can just go to Tubi and start or whatever, any of them. And that, is, whatever. And even with a decade-ish of streaming and that experience, like, I think even if you were 10 years old, like there's still something just sort of in that liminal brain of like, yeah, like I get it. Like I turn it on and it just starts playing.
Well, there's something to be said for the replication of the broadcast and linear experience of being able to just turn your whole brain off and be like, this is what's on. And I just have the one button that if I'm going to surf, it's
up or
just
down,
click,
up or down.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only choice I have to make.
And again, I mean, ESG also, it's like, hey, the show, a lot of the stuff's not very good. But I mean, like that's kind of the history.
That's the history
I'm
of
sorry.
TV.
I was going to say, really?
It just has to be good enough. Like, yes, is it enough for me to be able to zone out?
We are actually swimming in quality right now, is what I think the modern viewer perhaps neglects to remember.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I do think that, when you're in this world where, to use the, cliched joke of like, oh no, you have to watch 5 episodes before you can really appreciate, the majesty of what's happening here. Sure, maybe you pick one of those or whatever, but to then have this as an alternative of like, you know what, I'm just gonna go watch, old cold case files, and not have to think about it.
It's on 24 hours a day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, these things also come with, channel guides, which pretty much mimic what cable TV has been, it's very familiar.
It looks exactly like the channel guide.
People always say, the UI on streaming services, this is terrible. Like, this is very easy, like very familiar. You've used it your whole life. You've been around it. Okay. Again, David, ease of use, right? Not only is it one, just open the app and enjoy it, you're welcomed by something that's very familiar to you. And you're like, okay, great. And you're not charging me. All right, I can do the rest. We're good. But even, back to that UI though, I mean, at least I would say I probably watch more Pluto. I do like the linear channels versus on demand, but they have maybe, I think, 12 to 15 movie channels. And you can just pop in for a rewatchable movie, pop in for half an hour of Goodfellas. The ad breaks are really not onerous at all, especially compared to linear cable television. And the movie's on there. I could, if I go on the cable system and look at what's on, TNT or Paramount Network, it's the same old 20 movies from 20 years ago. The ones that are on Pluto are basically, it's not like I'm watching movies from the 40s. Like they license decently current movies. Nothing against movies from the 40s, but and then you look at Comedy Central, like that whole schedule is The Office anyway on 24 hours a day, and they have Cold Case 24 hours a day, Family Ties 24 hours a day, like Cheers, like you can just pop into these shows, and you just want. So I get, and it's all free. So. Anyway, a compelling product, but it's really been taking off. The growth numbers here, David is pointing out. I mean, Tubi was 40 million monthly users in 2021.
These all came out of nowhere in the last 5 years,
and had essentially doubled in size in 2 years. Pluto about the same.
Yeah, both Tubi and Pluto both got almost 80 million users.
80 million users a month. Yeah, each one does that.
Monthly active users is a bit of a fuzzy metric, but nonetheless. And I think as compelling a product as I think it is, kind of go back to where we started, because Pluto and Tubi, with Tubi being owned by Fox and Pluto being owned by Paramount, get mentioned in their earnings reports and on their investor calls, but with no financial information. So,
right. And Tubi is not profitable.
These are not making money. And, in that case, it does feel like yet another instant
scam business, David, or what of a
destructive,
sucking
viewership,
force but not making money. Yeah, right.
What is the plan? Again, I don't think we have a clearly articulated vision for a profitable, fast service, and that would be nice because, it is.
Profit is nice.
The money would be nice.
I mean, it costs money to run. It costs money to, even if they're cheap. Once you get up to 200,000 of them, a piece of content, that probably adds up a little bit. And so I do think that the sustainability of it would be good to know, right? I mean, before it destroys everything in its wake.
Right. If it's taking all the usage, which it is, but it's not taking the dollars then we're back at square one here about the streaming business from, on the SVOD side, same problem. It's like, oh, okay, great. People are watching this stuff, but you're losing hundreds of millions of dollars a quarter. Not that this business is that bad, but yeah, Tubi has not turned a profit. Pluto, they stopped reporting financial lines about, I think, 2 years ago at this point at Paramount, which is never a great sign. So yeah, is the money there? And, back to the model and advertising, this is a wholly advertiser-supported thing, David. So back to that video advertising, problems when Amazon Prime flips the switch and goes all ad tier, different. It's SVOD versus FAST, but it's still a video advertising money that you have more competitors for. So finding that profitability, David, is challenging. And the revenue model on these things too, it's a rev share. So there is most of it is not, maybe there's little bit of content licensing money coming into these places, but most part, you're only making money if someone's watching your thing on the service. So it's almost like YouTube, David, in a way, where it's just like, all right, well, we keep this share and you keep that share if someone watches this thing, David.
Yeah, I think Tubi has done a lot in particular. To the one at least I know more about, to try to improve its ad model and, eliminate some of the inherent problems of sort of the early phase of advertising on streaming services, which is generally a lack of inventory and sort of being inundated with the same ad over and over and, and trying to maintain the ad load at a level that's not, again, find that sweet spot between having some, because that's how it's supposed to work, but not back to the traditional network levels of, 8 minutes, a half hour, or 9 minutes, whatever. And so, it's, again, like, because it's sort of buried within a division, within the larger conglomerate, right. There's no need to report any of this. And, it is a shame, but here we are. And so, knowing this, until there is some good news, like we're just not going to know it. And, again, like it'd be great if someone pressured these CEOs to really articulate what the plan is, because it is a competitive, appealing product, especially as we're seeing that there's just a lot of concern about prices right now. And here's a free product that if you could make this work like the old broadcast model, then that'd be amazing.
But we're not there yet. It's in the honeymoon period, as we all know, can end very abruptly for certain businesses. So right now, they're still in it right now. But there's nothing to be said where, David, when those questions start churning on you, that is a time where you better have some answers and not just, nobody wants to hear the no timeline answer is not going to get a good pass anymore.
Right now, everyone is very happy to just be like,
everybody's happy to have the numbers. And,
we're seeing double-digit growth
of users
a month. We don't know what that means.
Right.
What the context is. We have no sense of the base, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Anyway, but ESG, a lot of good numbers in there to also check out about the audience, who's tuning in, what are they watching. It's a good piece to check out there at theankler.com. We'll shift over to the box office to round things out as always. Elaine, I'm just going to assume the new Alien pick gets a patented. I'm sure it's fine. Elaine, low review. Is that an accurate assessment?
Look, it is my shame or rather indifference that I have actually never seen Alien or any of its iterations.
But that's not in your wheel. That is not an Elaine Lowe genre that I'm like, that's not shocking.
It's not, it's not like horror or like super gory. It's scary.
Yeah.
I know. It's thrilling.
Listen, if you want to go stop, I'll go see it. I'm not discouraging you from this.
Should I go see it, Sean?
I would think you'd be having nightmares personally. I would say probably not for you.
If it's going to have to increase my nightly melatonin fill, then probably not.
It might definitely see in the daytime if you do go see it. I'll put it that way. But David, you an Alien guy?
Oh, absolutely not. I got scared last week watching Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children with my family. So I'm absolutely not going to see Alien Romulus or whatever it's called. But obviously, I hope it does well. Let's keep the streak going. Like I'll be rooting for it without question. I'll be rooting for it from the sidelines.
From afar,
This is very much true.
This is tracking probably around 40 million. So Elaine, the worst box office ever here in the summertime. It continues on yet again with another weekend with a major multi-million-dollar box office hit. So
what else is coming out this weekend?
Late May was something.
May, a lot of faint memories of May at this point, a mere 2 months ago. Look, then we're hitting certainly the end of summer, which is going to be this Don't Blink, the Channing Tatum movie with directed by Zoe Kravitz, which, looks intriguing. I don't know. We'll see what the box office is. But then Beetlejuice came on tracking at about $70 million. That's the weekend after Labor Day. So
yeah, we need dead ends as we were calling it.
David's
I'm going to put it on. Now I'm going to put it on the podcast. And now it's out there.
Yeah, no, it's out there. Right. The Deadpool. It ends with us.
The Deadpool. It ends with us.
Mashup.
Dead ends. That's cute. That's cute, David.
I love it.
Let's get that. We need that to power us through Labor Day. And then I think, and then hopefully Beetlejuice can take the baton from there.
Have you seen that It Ends With Us, Elaine? Has that been on your radar?
No, I have never read a Colleen Hoover book. I know she's very popular.
It's not a requirements. You can still go to the movie. You know, there's not a test going in.
I actually try to read the book before I see a TV show or watch a movie, which explains why my to-do list of TV shows.
So you can be disappointed by it?
My to-do list of adaptation-based shows and movies is a mile long because I'm like, I got to read the book first. And then it's like, when am I going to read the book?
Giving yourself so much homework, Elaine. They made the movie. All right.
So you don't have to read the book.
Yeah, we were different kids in high school. I'll just leave it at that. So
were you the kid who was like, I'm going to go get the VHS of the Shakespeare? Going to go watch the Leo DiCaprio, Romeo and Juliet.
Whatever it might be. I wish I had that in high school. Yeah, too bad. But we had like black and white movies that just didn't pertain anymore. It's like, oh boy, no luck there. But we'll see. Look, the phenomenon, it's been beating Deadpool this week at the box office, as Deadline has been putting in their headlines. But It Ends With Us, big phenomenon, romantic drama. Who knew? Added to the list of genres that no longer work and people don't want to see movies for adults. So I don't know. Add it to your list, Elaine, of tropes that just continue on here.
Exactly. Very pleased to see the resurgence of grown-up movies, I guess.
Yeah, and a wide variety.
Yeah, just will the hummingbird-like attention span of everyone actually register that one can make movies like a romantic drama or, yes, as we've talked about.
Well, you remembered for a little while, David. That's all it is.
Raunchy, an R-rated comedy and put it out in the world. And
we'll get there.
Just somebody give me the next gen Nora Ephron and I will be so happy.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a high bar. But no, I will say, look, David, Universal picked up a Quinta Brunson buddy comedy project this month. So, listen, I think people are starting to, again, take their shots in comedy too. So I was very heartened to see that. But anyway, we'll round out here. David, you get a pop quiz. You're showing the podcast. Elaine, you hosted last week and you did not take an opportunity to do a pop quiz. And I'm still baffled by this.
I took the repreve and the opportunity to not have to subject us all to a pop quiz.
Us all? You had the reins.
I know, I could have tortured you all with a tennis-based pop quiz.
If I can edit that, I would just say that, well, Sean, that's your franchise. So Elaine didn't want to, impede upon, what's
I didn't want to start a turf war here, Sean.
All right, that's a bit of a. I like your collective spin here. Very nice. Well, anyway, we're still having one. So, Elaine, someone who'd like to read a book before the movie. This is we have a test here, so no studying though, sadly. So, but we will stay with aliens and the spirit of box office. What did the original Alien movie make at the box office? It was actually a big Memorial Day movie back in 1979, which by most markers is the end of the Generation X birth year generation. That's a side point. You can give me the worldwide gross in either 1979 or $2024, your pick.
Oh, the adjusted for inflation numbers.
You did well last week. Last time you did well.
I did. I think that might have been a fluke.
Find out.
In $1979. Globally. $12 million. How much is that in 2024 dollars? It's going to be like $700,000 or something.
All right. Elaine's getting 12 million. The bid is 12 million, David. What do you have?
Should I just do 12 million and $1?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, you can't. Real
then
number.
I will make an
Give us a real guess.
You're not being Richard. You can't do that.
I will stick with $1979. I will not try to whatever.
Right.
I will say that its global box office was $125 million.
All right. Not bad. It was actually $187 million, which is in 2024 dollars is about $810
In
1979, $810 million in today's money. Aliens. So the original Alien movies. That was a massive, massive hit. And a fun fact is like the U.S. was only a third of that, which in 1979 is pretty dramatic because it was wild. It was only $64 million, just according to thenumbers.com. So some fun facts there. Alien, of course, Jim Cameron did the sequel Aliens in 1986, which actually made about the same amount globally, ironically, about 183 million. That was in July of 86. That made more money in the U.S. than the previous one.
Are you going to make us guess the
No, I'm just
Fincher
giving
one?
more.
Okay.
I'm stopping my. I think most people, because there are some purists there who stop at that movie, so I will leave it there myself. But that was actually his follow-up to The Terminator. So back in 86, the next movie he did after that. Now, I will give you a bonus question. James did have one movie in theaters between Terminator and Aliens, a movie that he co-wrote. He didn't direct it. He co-wrote, and it came out in 1985. Any guesses?
Oh, David, help us carry us through this one.
1985 movie. Name one.
I mean,
it's an action movie. I'll tell you that.
It's not the Piranha movie, right? That was earlier.
He directed that. Piranha 2. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
No idea. All right. Elaine, any action movie guesses from 1985?
In 1985, I was
wait.
Twinkle in my mother's
I'm
eye
coming
in
back.
1985.
Can I come back in?
David, Elaine's clearly tapped out, so yes.
I know
go
I
ahead.
said I had no idea, but Predator?
That was 87. A good guess, though. He was also not involved in that. It was Shane Black. But yes. But no, he co-wrote Rambo 2.
Rambo 2. I didn't know he co-wrote that.
With Stallone.
No
now,
way.
That's a writer's room we should reassemble in 2024. I mean, that is...
Wow.
I had no idea he had anything to do with that movie.
He rarely talks about it, but yes, that is an IMDb fun fact of James Cameron's oeuvre.
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Cameron clearly wrote enough, perhaps, to get a credit.
Half credit
and then the movie that you would see if you went to watch it now would not necessarily bear that much resemblance to
what he wrote.
What he
as a
actually
script?
wrote. That's going to be my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know the backstory. I'd have to go look that up.
I'm just going by credits and on IMDb, so that is it. So anyway,
is that like commonly held knowledge?
It is now. So thanks to this podcast. So there you go. This is why we do the podcast.
Now you
Lane.
know. That's why we're here.
It's a well-rounded podcast, Lane. That's all it is. We got food reviews, we got trivia, history, whatever you need. So anyway, you can get my breakdown of all the new Alien movie numbers to know on Sunday night, along with the It Ends With Us Week 2 and much more. In the Wake Up, which you get as part of your Ankler subscription, giving you full access to the newsletters you hear about here on the podcast over at theankler.com. Just pop in the old email address. Super easy to do, and reach us here at the podcast anytime at podcasts@theankler.com and follow The Ankler on the socials at The Ankler on your favorite social platform. Elaine and David, pleasure. Thanks for pitching in here, David. And on a Richard this week, I'm sure he sends his regards from wherever he is.
Yes, I'm no Richard, but I'm happy to have been a part of this. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, there was no 1970s sitcom references, so we'll thank you for that.
I did allude to broadcast television, I admit it, but I didn't go deeper than that.
Exactly. And of course, a big thanks to you all for listening. We'll see you next time.